Can you see the screen? Everybody, can you see the screen? Can you?
Yeah,
see?
I can see it,
Okay,
yes.
very good. So we're going to begin right now with this first presentation. Something happened when I created, I guess.
But we don't see the
working?
slide. It's not in slideshow mode. I don't know.
I'm putting it in slideshow mode now, but looks like I'm having. Oh, there it is.
Thanks for letting me be a part of the.
Sorry, we see the facilitation portion of it.
Record a message and send it in. I'm
Can
in
you
class
hear
right
it?
now.
We can hear it, but it's not full screen.
Yes.
Oh, I'm in full screen here.
Can you swap it where it says display settings at the top?
Okay, display settings at the top. Do what?
Swap presenter view and slideshow.
Okay, thank you for telling me.
Okay.
Okay, now is that you can see it? Can you see it now?
Yes, it's perfect.
Yes.
Screen.
Very good. Thanks for the help.
Hey everybody. Thanks for letting me be a part of the discussion this afternoon. Dr. Tingersacks, thank you for letting me record a message and send it in. I'm in class right now, and so I'm sorry I couldn't be there in person. I wish I could, but I'm grateful for the opportunity that I have to share some of the thoughts that we had after reading this amazing book, Decolonizing Methodologies, in our famous How to Be a Doc Student class. And as we read it, we came up with some ideas and thoughts on how can a science teacher be a decolonizer. Now, I would say if you're not a science teacher, don't just turn off your ears and think, well, that doesn't apply to me. I teach something else. Because the more you think about these things, the more I would say all of the subjects that are taught can use these same ideas. It might look a little bit different in an English class or a history class or even a PE class, but all teachers, not just science teachers, can use these ideas. So I hope you enjoy them. Here's what here's the first thing that we gleaned from this amazing book.
Oh, what happened? Why doesn't it move?
I think you have to click next.
I moved it.
Thanks for letting me.
Okay.
Here's the first one. We didn't come up with it, but it is something that Linda Twice Smith talked about in her book. She said that we need to discover beauty in knowledge. Now, this can come in a science classroom as teachers create projects that allow open-ended answers, open-ended solutions. If every project we do is having to discover one single number that is a known constant, then we don't have an opportunity to discover beauty in our students' knowledge. If instead we give them that number and say, hey, this is gravity, 9.8. But now I want you to use that to explain to me your decision behind why you came up with this design to drop something off the balcony to help it survive the beauty. That's the beauty in it. Here you can see 3 pictures. These are all different solutions, beautiful solutions to how students could potentially protect an egg. I'll tell you what, none of them worked, but they were amazing ideas. They were so creative, and it was an open-ended opportunity for the students to explore and to try something. And it gave me as a teacher the chance to recognize each of them for their amazing idea. We don't just need to recognize the beauty of the correct answer, but when you give open-ended projects with many different steps along the way for students to achieve as they go, it allows you to recognize even the beauty in something that may not end up working. But if they can explain to you why they did what they did and how they did it and their rationale behind what they were thinking, then help them recognize that that is beautiful and that their knowledge is valuable. Now, the next thing that we were able to think more about as we read this book was to show the beauty in the knowledge of others. Don't just, like it says, don't just stick to one single story or narrative, but find examples that you can bring into your classroom to show students that there are amazing people all over the world thinking about amazing solutions, and they have for thousands of years. Just because they didn't live in today's age where they didn't have computers and cell phones doesn't mean that they weren't smart. In fact, in some ways, it means that they were more smart and even better at looking at patterns and finding solutions. So bring these ideas into your classroom. To name just a few, ancient people of Central Africa figured out that the tilt of the crescent moon shifted, and that helped them determine dry and wet season. The Polynesians, they were incredibly skilled navigators. They had huge calendars that they developed with the moon and the stars, and it helped them traverse miles of open ocean. And even here in North America, in New Mexico, the indigenous people living here were able to track the sun so closely that they could make a calendar for themselves to tell them when the summer solstice was, when the winter solstice was, and when the fall and spring equinox were. Amazing things, things that I don't think I could do right now, even though I know what day it happens. This is just an incredible fount of knowledge. And so bring those into your classroom, show them that these are happening all over the world, and there's beauty in all this knowledge that we can find.
Oh,
All right, now the last one here is positioning.
did I miss one? I want to go back. Okay, yes. Are you going to talk?
Now, to stretch this one a little bit further, don't just think that the examples you use have to be the final answer we came up with where everything was figured out. I think there's a lot of good that can come by showing students that even if they were halfway there, it doesn't mean that they were dumb or stupid or unintelligent, but showing the beauty in getting halfway there is really great. Just like my students who came up with great ideas, but none of their eggs survived, they had great ideas. We don't just throw it all out and they weren't dumb or stupid. There's a lot of beauty in what they did. Some other examples here from history that you could bring in. Anaximander came up with a model of the universe that was totally wrong. But for his time and where he was living, it was the first good attempt at explaining day and night. Ptolemy tried to explain retrograde motion when we saw planets move back and forth with epicycles. Again, it wasn't completely right yet. We hadn't come to the full understanding of what was happening, but it was still a great thought, very creative, a great idea. And Galileo attempted to measure the speed of light. He was totally wrong, but we just didn't have the stuff that we needed, the tools that we needed back then to really get that answer yet. And so show that there is beauty in the struggle to reach truth, not just getting the complete correct answer. And that will allow your students to recognize beauty all around them as well, not just see people who don't have the correct answer yet as being dumb or unintelligent, but as being creative in their own place and time. All right, now the last one here is positioning. Positioning is something that was also brought up in the book, and it's another thing to really consider as we're trying to be these decolonizing teachers. Do we position ourselves as the ones in the classroom with all the knowledge that we are simply disseminating out to our students? If we are doing that, then we're being a little bit like the colonizers. We're saying, hey, we have the answers, come to us, we'll just tell them to you. Yeah. What we want to do as teachers, if we want to teach in a decolonizing way, is we want to find a way to position ourselves with our students where we are discovering truth together, where we're saying, hey, I want you to find an answer. You can find an answer. I don't need to just tell it to you. I want you to find the answer. We have to think about how we present our projects and how we present our and lead our discussions as we position ourselves in this way. So do we position ourselves in a way that allows involvement in the discussion? Are there opportunities for our students to explain the answer? Are there opportunities for our students to be the experts? Can we have a problem that's very difficult to solve and not give them the answer, but say, hey, work together. You guys can do it. You can figure it out. If we can position ourselves as more of a facilitator, a helper, a supporter, a coach, then we can hopefully be more decolonizing in our teaching. We can help them realize that they have knowledge and that they can find knowledge, that they really can bring what they know to the class and be a big part of what we learn together. All right, so now we talked about three things. We talked about being a decolonizing teacher by discovering beauty in the knowledge of our students, by showing beauty in all kinds of knowledge from all sort of sources. And we talked about positioning, finding a way for you to position yourself as more of a facilitator, coach, support to help your students realize they've got knowledge, they can discover things, they can find solutions. It's really hard though for a teacher to just walk into a classroom and say, hey, find the answer. We really have to scaffold this. We really have to help students little by little gain these skills and realize that this is our classroom culture. And so when should you be doing this? And how do you do this? You can't, again, I don't believe you can just walk into class one day and say, oh yeah, find the answers if you're giving them notes every single day. It's something that they kind of need to practice. And so I encourage you to think about what you're doing on your first day, your first 2 weeks, and every single unit after that. On the first day, are you simply reading the syllabus and being the disseminator of knowledge? Now, in some things we have to, right? We've got to tell them some of the policies or some of the rules for the class. But on that first day, are you also giving your students a chance to discover something? Are you giving them a chance to be the expert in something? Do you have any activities planned where you can discover their beauty and recognize them for the knowledge that they're coming into your classroom with? I hope so. And I hope you can think about how you're spending your time on that first day to already be creating that culture that will allow those ideas and those practices to continue throughout the year. And then what do you do on the day they come back in those first 2 weeks, that very next class? Does it just turn back into notes? Or do you say, hey, on day 2, we're going to do something where they get to solve a problem, they get to come to a solution, and I'm not going to tell it to them. But I know it's something they can work together to find a solution for. And then every unit, are you doing something every unit that continues this culture in your classroom? If you are, hopefully this will just grow and grow and grow until daily these practices are being applied into your classroom. Don't think about this as, wow, I have to change every lesson every day right now. But again, I encourage you to think about, what can I do on the first day, the first 2 days, and every unit after that to make these changes.
We want to thank Julia for a superb start to our presentations this evening. And if you have any comments, can you please put them in the chat right now while Joshua gets ready to set up? Joshua, do you need us to share the screen or anything?
Yes, I can. You want me to send a PowerPoint to you, or because I just tried to share and
you can share, I think. Lisa, can he?
I just need some access. I need permission.
Let me see if I can make it so you can. Give me just a second.
Okay, so everybody, can you please put some comments on what Julia has said from the book that we read and how to be a doc student class? Anything you want to put there. If you would like a copy of the book, we are actually going to buy books for you. So if you put that you would like a copy, please put that in the chat. We're going to compile this afterwards. If you'd like to go with us on the trip next Friday, please put that in the chat as well with your email, and we'll be in touch with you. So take this moment.
Dr. Kingersex,
Yes.
I can't give Joshua permission because I'm not the host. You have to give
Oh,
him
okay.
permission.
So let me do that, Joshua. I'll do it right now. I am going to allow you to be the host. Allow to, where is that? To share. I'm making you the host. Okay, so now you can share. We'll have a chance for questions afterwards, okay, or comments afterwards. Go ahead, Josh.
Okay. And can y'all see?
Yes.
Are y'all seeing the presentation?
Yes.
Cool. All right. So, hello everyone. I see a lot of familiar faces in the Zoom. So nice to see y'all again. I'm Joshua Robinson. For those of you who I haven't been able to meet in person or virtually yet, and I'm a third year doctoral student in the middle secondary education teaching and learning program. My concentration is teaching and teacher education. So I'm gonna frame my exploration of decolonization through the lens of BlackCrit and hip hop, and kind of to introduce us to why I'm going that route. I'm gonna start off with this. So I've got two sentences at the very top, and they're very similar, but the only thing that's different from them is the punctuation. So at the very top, we have "it is what it is," and then "it is what it is," questioning it. So at the root of my research that I'm going to do for my dissertation, I'm looking at hope and hopelessness. And as I've been thinking about it more and more, these first two sentences are kind of the easiest way for me to explain what exactly I'm looking at. Because when you accept something for what it is, you're accepting it as it's a conclusive situation. So you're not going to be able to change it. And that act of being hopeless actually continues to colonize us and continues to reify those hopeless messages and the ways that we look at the world. But if we question it, that simple questioning of what is our lived reality, can it be changed? There's hope in there. And through hope, that's how we can reach liberation. And so I have this quote from Keisha Green, "Certainly we can do better." And in this article that I pulled it from, she was talking about decolonizing methodologies. So finding different ways for us to conduct research in a way that welcomes more people, that values different knowledges and things of that nature. And below I have this quote from Hesse about race. This is from an introduction that they wrote for a book about counter racial formation theory. And it's talking about how race is just this very convoluted thing that gets redefined based on whoever's in power and whatever setting that it's in, and how it all exists under this white gaze. So it really shows that race is an integral part, especially race in our lived experiences and our situated context. Like, this is something that we all have to deal with as a result of colonization. It's a socialized phenomenon that basically deems you whether you're going to be human or either standard or you're not. So I say all that to say that I'm looking at hope and hopelessness, and hope as an intervention against colonization. So hope is a decolonizing act. And I'm gonna do that through looking at hip hop and BlackCrit. Those are well, hip hop is like one of my lifelong passions, but BlackCrit is like my theoretical framework that I've been working with, and I'm kind of tying them together. So throughout this, I'm gonna frame it alongside one of the most influential albums that have one of the most influential albums in my lifetime for me, and that's Common B. This is like one of the first albums I ever remember seeing. My mom had this in the car. She had it on CD. And it's just one of those ones for me. Like, it's a classic. And I wonder now, looking back at it as I was doing this presentation, like what type of lessons that I learned, what lessons of hope I learned from listening to this my whole life. Because it's about as old as me. It's like just like 7 years younger than me. So it's definitely grown as I've grown. So I'm going to be showing these quotes from the album because for me, Common is just as credible as Waylats and Billings. And that's one of the biggest arguments I'm going to make in my research is that hip hop artists are cultural critics and theorists, as you can see from the quote by Livingston below it. They're experts as well. And that's a move that I'm choosing to do as a decolonizing move. So in addition to showing you people that the Academy would traditionally find credible and experts and geniuses, I'm going to show you Black people who may not have a degree, who may showcase their genius in a different way. So that's why I have this. So I'm going to start off with this quote from Common. I want to be as free as the spirits of those who left. I'm talking Malcolm, Coltrane, my man, Youssef. So he's talking about people who have left our realm, who've passed away. He's talking about Malcolm X, Coltrane, iconic jazz artist, and then Youssef which was one of his childhood friends who died at a young age. So this idea of being free is what I want to talk about, especially as we're talking about decolonization. So if I'm in this space right now, in the space of academia, in the space of higher ed, trying to get this dissertation, like who am I? How do I show up in the space? Do I show up differently because of like maybe personal insecurities? Or do I show up differently maybe because the space doesn't necessarily allow me to show up in my authentic way? If it doesn't allow me to show up as my full self. So I am a Black man in education. And as we all know, that's an extreme minority in education. So I've kind of shied away from that earlier in my work, but like the longer that I'm in this, I'm realizing that's something that like there's power in that. And even though I may be a minoritized voice in the space, how can I like push this space forward? How can I contribute as both a subject of research and a producer of new knowledge? So that's who I am. And it's also a question that I want y'all to ask yourselves whenever you're doing your own research, like who are you in the space? Why are you showing up the way that you're showing up? With that said, I'm gonna go ahead and dive into the nitty gritty, and I'm gonna use this quote from Common again, a different one. This one is somehow through the dust I could see the dawn, like the Bishop Magic Wand. That's why I write freedom songs for the real people. So if any of you don't know, Bishop Magic Wand, he was a former pimp turned preacher. So this is like very real, authentic things that Common's talking about, and just talking about how people can grow and learn from situations. And that's why that's who he writes for. He writes for the real people. And for me, that's why I got into the program in the first place. I got into it because of my love for my community in Clinton County. And I just want the people around me to be able to thrive and not just survive. So that brings me to the question, who is decolonization for? Like, is it just an Indigenous issue? Is it just is it just an issue about in education? Is it about getting more representation of minorities on staff? Like, who is this for? My question is for everyone. But I'm using my lens of BlackCrit to help me answer this question. So I've got quotes from Carrie right here, who talks about mattering and how everyone in society doesn't matter. That's why Black Lives Matter was such a big movement, because it shines a light on this simple fact that some people in the society are valued and matter and other people aren't. So Carrie says comprehensive mattering urges imagination projects centered on new ways to matter in a world that coerces and relies on Black lives unlivable. So that goes back to that colonization, like who is being pushed in certain ways, who isn't allowed to be their full selves, who are we gonna profit off of? So Black people, I'm focusing my research solely on Black people just because, as I said before, I'm a Black man and I'm going to focus on that. That's gonna be my cut that I make into this. But again, decolonization is for everyone, but in my work, I'm gonna specifically talk about Black people and more specifically Black men. And I'm talking about us because it's not something that we can just like do by getting away from white institutions or like distancing yourself from people who practice racism, who are racist, make racist remarks or things like that. Because like anti-Blackness, it's endemic, it's everywhere, it's rooted inside of us. As one of our friends was saying earlier, like it's a full body project. It's in our hearts, it's in our souls, it's in our bodies. We just had a Black Hair conference. Shout out to Dr. Tinker Sachs and Lisa for throwing that. And we talked about like the physical aspect, like the hair as an extension of the colonial project and how hair has been policed, especially on Black people and non-white people. As we saw connections from different continents, different groups of people. Like everyone has dealt with this. So it's okay, cool. It's showing that this is something that affects us on a physical level, but it also affects us on a spiritual level, on a mental level. Like I may spread colonial ideas and white supremacist practices because I was born into this system, raised in the system, and this system has been reinforced to me on every level of my education. So it's very important to recognize that as a first step, because like Cole said, non-whites are not guaranteed benefits from white supremacy. So even though we may accept, like take those white supremacist values up, it's not going to benefit us in the long run, and it's going to do more damage than good. And so I put Dumas and Ross because this is like my BlackCrit text. Like this is like my foundational one. They lay out why BlackCrit is so important in comparison to critical race theory. And BlackCrit specifically focuses on the experiences of Black people, essentially. So that's the core of it, and that's why I am presenting that. And I'm going to combine that with hip hop and the power of music. So before I even like found this article from Alexander, as I told you, I was going to theme this presentation around Commons album B. And in her paper, in her article, she has this like image right here of like, looks kind of like a boombox, could be a suitcase, but to me it gives boombox vibes. And right there it says B. And it was just a moment of like synergy where I was like, okay, I was doing what I was supposed to do. And Alexander's work, she combines BlackCrit with mothering. So even though it's a little bit different than my research, she still brings music into it as well. So it's BlackCrit mothering, and then she brings the music aspect into it by saying that music holds such a powerful space for most people. There's so many ways to connect emotions through music, and it almost feels like there's a perfect song to fit every situation. This case is no different. So in some of my other presentations, if you ever seen one of my presentations in person, I typically have music in it for sure. This time I didn't do it because I've never done that over Zoom, and I've heard other presentations use it, and I didn't want the music to be funky. But music is just integral to like helping me get my point across. Like I often tell people, if I have an idea, someone in a rap song has probably said it way cooler than I have, and it's probably straight to the point. Like I would cite them before trying to say it myself. But my bag is writing, so sometimes when I'm presenting like and just talking to people, like it's easier for me to call back to people who I've already, who I've already learned from, who said it right to the point. So that's why Livingston, who has been theorizing about mixtape methodologies as decolonizing acts, he says, what happens when this cultural phenomenon of hip hop, which is historically anchored by Black and Brown youth's experiences and ways of knowing, is situated within the context of schools and educational research. I forgot my quote, my end quote, but yeah, so thinking about how hip hop, when we go past the surface level and adoption of just like playing rap songs into in class per se to get kids interested in math. Like what actually does that do? What's the deeper level of that? It's decolonizing. It's bringing the youth's real life experiences that the institution may or may not even really value. You're putting it into a space where now it's seen as an authority, it's seen from a place of authority, a place of importance. And that's reaffirming their own identities and their own lives. So lastly, I got this quote from Thomas because she has this really cool article called How Do You Play When You're Prey? And it's all talking about how Black people create. Like creation is just a part of our way. It's how we cope, it's how we live. So that's why hip hop is just so integral into this, because decolonizing is to do something that is against the grain. You have to imagine. You have to do things that haven't been done before. You have to push back against traditional values, even in the academic space and educational settings. So that creativity is so important because how do we be creative in such a predatory and colonized space? Yeah. That's what I am really working towards trying to find. So this is the outro of Commons album of B, and his dad, I believe, and he's saying be here, be there, be that, be this, be grateful for life, be grateful to life. So it's all about possibility. So if you met me like a year or two ago, you would know that my research was very interested in Afrofuturism. I've kind of found another lane and kind of focused in some more. But at the root of it, imagination is all about what I'm interested in and possibility. And that's what hope is about. It's about imagining something different. So Livingston has this really cool quote, and I'm not gonna read it for you because I know we all can read, we're all brilliant. But I just want to ask you, can you hear it? Can you feel it? Because I can, and that's what guides my work. And I'm hoping that you're hearing that rallying cry to push the limits. Let's do something new. Let's really affirm all of our identities and decolonize the space that we're living in. Because if we don't do it, then the generation after us is still gonna have to come and do it. So it's now or never. So let's, answer that call. And once you answer that call, because answering is cool, but I'm very against just being performative for the sake of being on the right side of things. So if we're really going to decolonize research in this space, what does it actually mean? Like what we doing now? So for that, I have these questions that were proposed by Livingston. And these are just some things that you can ask yourself while you're going about your research. Like as I'm getting close to that stage where I'm going to actually be doing my research, I'm thinking through these things as I'm reading articles from different scholars, or I'm listening to different music. Like, who is this research for? Is it for the institution to get more power and to collect more knowledge and just hoard information and be behind a paywall? Or am I doing this so people in my community can actually see a difference in their lives so they can come up with the solutions to their lives? Because we're not like we just are hoarding the solutions to their lives. They already have this knowledge. So are we just going to go and take that knowledge and then safeguard it? Or we're going to uplift them to make sure that they really can share this knowledge with other people? Because it's not just enough to just document to capture their voices. We shouldn't capture their voices, it's about sharing. So these are just some questions to think about. And lastly, I'll close with this. It's two quotes, one from Livingston, one from Common, to show that I find that a scholar and a rap artist on the same playing field. This is one of the singles from B, and it's the hook. It's like go, 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 go. But he said on the count of three, everybody run back to your fantasy. Like I said, this is dreaming work. This is freedom dreaming at its finest. And as Livingston said, oh, that's the wrong person. That's supposed to be Livingston. I have the right person in my notes. Oh man. But it's someone from Ajapong and Kelly's book, Teaching for Liberation. And they say, you can't miss when you dream. So with that being said, I just invite you all to dream about more ways that we can decolonize education, curriculum, research, and our own minds, bodies, and souls. Appreciate you.
Thank you, Joshua. And I welcome everyone to write some comments in the chat right now. While Joshua, can you share the screen, give the screen sharing to Camilla, who is going to come on with her Brazilian aspect of decolonization. So please, everyone, can you please put your comments in the chat? We're going to come back to them, and we are going to be running over. So I hope you would allow us at least 15 to 30 minutes over the time that we said we would end. We did have 3 presentations today, and we did give you a chance to talk. So kindly stay on if you can, please. So thank you very much, Joshua. Let's get some comments in the chat for Joshua while we get Camilla ready to start. Camilla, can you give us a minute, please, for people to respond to Joshua first?
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. Okay, everybody, can you take a minute to type your comments in the chat, please? Thank you, everyone. Please continue the flow of conversation. Camilla, over to you.
Okay, can you hear me well? Can you see my cat?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so I'll be talking about the decolonizing that wait. Let me just flip. So yeah, there we go. The decolonizing narratives, grown-up bedtime stories, and I'm gonna talk about how we do that in Brazil, especially using carnival. I'm a bit shy to talk about carnival now because Leo actually comes from a city that has a very amazing carnival that I have been watching my entire life. I showed a picture of that on my presentation in our class, Professor Tinker Sacks. That's the one with the giant 30-foot rooster. So that's where he's from. I love his carnival. My city doesn't have a traditional carnival like that, but anyway. And then when I was talking, I was discussing that I called a friend from Brazil that she works with me. She's a history teacher. And I was talking about her, I was talking to her about how are we decolonizing teaching in Brazil? Because that does connect with what's doing in Carnival, because Carnival is a way also to educate people. So first of all, as I was saying, I had this class with Professor Tinker Sacks, and we discussed this book from Simon, and he was talking about the museum exhibitions regarding lynching and showing the pictures of lynching. And besides what he's talking about, I mean, there are pictures and you can see many pictures on the internet. I'm pretty sure most of you have already seen them, and it's very, very powerful to make you understand what's happening, to feel. And that's the same process that's going to happen with Carnival and the pedagogy of witnessing. It does encourage reflection and makes us reflect on history. So Brazil is this big. Some people don't know, but Brazil is this big. And it is this close to the African continent, and it's this close to North America, especially, I mean, the US. And this is Brazil. And I am from a city right here, and Leo is from here. So yeah, we're from very far apart in the country. His region is nicer than mine. My region is patience, Nazi, horrible people, but we are working to educate them, and it's gonna be okay. So today, as I was saying, we're talking about decolonizing Brazil through the lens of Carnival. And one of the things that I was talking to my colleague, and one of the authors that she told me to cite to you was Edward Said. And he talks about the consequences of colonialism and how they still cause chaos, coups, corruption, civil wars, and bloodshed. And when we talk about bloodshed, it can be related to police violence against specific groups of our society. Coups, we just had a coup in Brazil in 2016, just because we had a leftist woman, and as a president. So it does happen. And I always say that Brazil is constantly colonized culturally through political coups and everything. So it's a struggle that we have to work on. But so what is Carnival? So Carnival is a celebration that we have. It's one day specifically, 40 days before Easter. It's a Tuesday, but we do start celebrating like on the previous Thursday, and it goes all the way until Wednesday. There are three main types of carnival celebrations in Brazil: the parades in Rio and also in São Paulo, but they're the same thing. Recife and Olinda Block. So here's where we have Leo's Carnival and the Salvador Electric Trios, which are also amazing. I haven't been there. I dream to do that. It's super cool. So I have thought about how I could present this to you. And I realized I don't have to, because Carnival can present it to you. So let me just open it. This thing, this controls. Okay, so we're gonna watch it and then I'm gonna comment on it. And it's a recording from someone that was watching it, so we're gonna kind of feel as if you were there. Can you listen to them?
Yeah. Okay, so this is about who's called again. Sorry. There we go. About Almirante Negro, which was praised by Paraíso do Tuiuti this year, actually in Rio, and he was the leader of the revolt of the Lash. So what happened was that in Brazil, many people that were previously enslaved or children of enslaved populations joined the Navy, but they were still treated as slaves. So Brazil bought a bunch of ships from England, and one of them, not one of them, but some of them went to visit England, and they realized that people from Navy from other countries were not treated that way. They were not physically punished and everything. So when one of their companions died, they started this rebellion, and it was a nice rebellion. They put their warships all towards the capital, because at that time, the capital of the country was Rio. Now it's Brasilia, everybody knows that, right? But at the time, the capital was Rio, and they put all the warships and pointed the cannons to the government palaces and said, okay, you're not going to stop treating us like that. We're going to bomb you. So that's Brazilian rebellion. We can be very rebel. So yeah, so he was praised. And as we could see at that choreography, it was showing that they came from this African tradition, slave populations, and you can see the blood on their back showing that they used to receive this physical punishments, and then this person rises as their guide and as their leader. So that's one part of it. We also had this year Salgueiro praising the Yanomami people, and in the middle of the song they would say Yate Mishuaya Aea, which means I'm still alive, I'm still here. And part of the parade had this historical process of how the military dictatorships started invading the Amazon to develop it, basically destroying everything they could. And even nowadays, we have a lot of people mining there for gold and killing especially our Yanomami population. And Kopenawa was there, which is a shaman, which is a leader of these people. He was in the parade, and it was very beautiful.
But the main parade that I always talk about is this one from 2019. It is one of my favorites of all times. It's from the Estação Primeira de Mangueira, which is a very, very traditional samba school. It's not a school like you're thinking in education. It's a place you go to learn samba and live this culture. Let me just show you a piece of it also, because I also have said that it's awesome. No, it is the last one. Auto is the last one. Okay, so the sound of explosions, it's the fireworks. We're gonna go back specifically to this point. So this point was showing the original people from Brazil and then enslaved populations who actually built Brazil, taking off the invaders from their history, beautifully written stories, and taking that place and saying, we are the owners of the story, we are the ones that should be praised. And this, just another piece that's very important. So this card, some incredibly important. It shows many details. He's gonna go on the details of people, but it's showing a symbol of death and invasion that refers to everybody's half naked and having fun. But let me show you what they're talking about specifically, more academically now. So there you go. That's the part that I was showing you first. So we have the Portuguese, the invaders, the murderers, the robbers of the land, and the populations that actually built Brazil saying that's enough. And when they come out of this car, you can see that they're much smaller than what they're said to be. And then our population takes this place of glory. This is another view of the parade. It's one of the most beautiful parades I've ever seen. Depiction of the originary people and of the enslaved populations that came, but they depict this arrival of the African populations in Brazil in a very beautiful way, because it's in a way that it's bringing all this culture, all this richness to the land. Let me just go ahead of it. Like this, like in this ship. Usually ships bringing enslaved populations to Brazil are always depicted very sadly, but this time they made it very rich to show this inheritance that was arriving. So as I was saying about that card, this is that card, and they depict this, the Monumento às Bandeiras, which is like the flags monument, which is this monument that is in São Paulo. And it shows it praises the man that invaded Brazil further inland, murdered the indigenous, robbed their land, enslaved some of them, many of them. They were looking for gold, silver, emeralds, and diamonds, basically. And sometimes people do protest because I understand the historical reason, but this for me is a much better depicting of the process. So yeah, this is one of my favorite cars in Carnival at all times. And that's one of the most educational parades that I have ever seen. Oh, but one last thing very fast. I have unblurred my background so you can see the flag of my team. So this is my soccer team from my city. And our arena where they play is called Índio Condá, which is that indigenous leader that I talked earlier. And one of the reasons that I wanted to show you this is to remember how important it is to decolonize, because as far as I know, we don't have tigers in Brazil. And he was depicted with a tiger. But okay, this artist that did this, he's very peculiar. He once made Santa with like being pulled by dinosaurs, so he's very peculiar. So anyway, we do have educational laws and standards that my friend was telling me about, and I checked them out, that it determines the inclusion of these discussions of decolonization and originary people, originary culture, science, traditions, and everything as part of our curriculum, but not only part of our curriculum like, oh, I'm gonna get April 19th with it's the Indigenous Populations Day. I'm gonna just talk about that. No, it's supposed to be embedded and discussed in a decolonized or anti-colonial way, the way that we have been discussing it. And Thomas Tadeu da Silva is a academic a scholar from Rio Grande do Sul that discusses this curriculum decolonizing. There's a bit of discussion about decolonizing, the terms of decolonizing or anti-colonial or acolonial, but I'm gonna use decolonizing here. I have used it. But yeah, it is determined by law that all of this we are discussing has to be done. That what she told me though is that most teachers that come from federal universities in Brazil, which are the best universities and free, and I love our system about that. They do work on that way, but many teachers are just studying in private universities, and then the discussion is not that, because then the neoliberalism is like the framework that guides everything, and there's no place for decolonizing or acolonization or anti-colonization in neoliberalism. Yeah, sorry, I
Okay.
just talked too much. Sorry.
Thank you very much. Thank you to all of our presenters today. Thank you, Camilla. I would give you a few minutes right now. Let's take 3 minutes to type any comments that we want in the chat. And that will give Camilla, if you could return the host privilege to Lisa, please. Then we are going to have a discussion for 15 minutes and we will close at 6:30. So thank you very much for staying on with us. We really appreciate your participation in today's gathering. And the presenters, if you could look at the questions and the comments pertaining to your presentation and get ready to give a response. And then we will give anyone who wants to add a question, give a comment or say anything, we'll give you a minute or two to say that. All right, so we have another 2 minutes or 3 minutes to write some questions or to come up with a comment you want to make, or to write a comment in the chat based on Camilla's presentation and anything you want to ask of the presenters today. Let us take a moment.
it's not in vain that Carnival is called the greatest spectacle on earth. It is the greatest spectacle on earth.
If you have written your comments right now, then I will open it up to the two presenters, Camilla and Joshua, to say any response that you want to give to the comments in the chat. And then we would open it up to anyone who wants to say anything or ask questions. Okay, so we give the presenters a chance to read the comments.
Can I start with Joshua's question? Hi, thank you for the question. Yeah, I understand completely what you're talking about, because I'm a big NFL fan, so I followed all the Redskins discussions and all. It is seen as praising still down there, and the Shoklang population, which is his ethnicity, I have never heard anything from them, but I do not, I don't socialize with them because they have their own land and everything. So there's still this structure down there. But what I see, but again, from a white perspective, I'm a white person. From what I see, the way that we talk about him is always on praising him. So every time our team scores a very hard goal, or our goalkeeper saves the ball that was just very, very, very hard, we say that it was the strength of the Konda's spirit. But again, I just started thinking about how it might not be so praising as I thought at the beginning, like 2 or 3 years ago, but it's not a discussion down there yet.
Can you repeat the question for us, please, Camilla, so that the listeners who are not seeing the chat will understand?
Oh, yeah. It's just Joshua asked if people in the community were fine with Konda being depicted and having the name of the arena, and he cited the Washington Commanders, which were the Redskins, and this discussion that goes on here. Yeah.
Right. Thank you. Joshua, did you want to say anything?
Well, no, I appreciated that response, because even how you said like the approach to things, like I guess it's the intention behind a lot of things, how you can see it being appraising versus an appropriation of something, stealing the whole identity, likeness, culture, and without even like going back and giving the props and resources to like indigenous communities. That was a big problem with Washington in the first place. So I can see the difference, but I also like there may still be room for future growth in that situation too. And that case. So this is something is interesting, seeing similar concepts explored differently.
That's true, in different places, right? Did you have any comments on any of the comments in the chat, Joshua?
I definitely appreciate the love, y'all, for sure. I saw Marcus talking about Black quantum futurism. I'm hitting him up to learn more about what that is. Yeah, I appreciate y'all. I appreciate all the comments, and yeah, it's been real.
I didn't write anything in the chat, but I was wondering whether I could make a comment about Camilla's presentation.
Yes, the floor is now open to everyone to make comments. It's now 6:18. We are going to 6:30. So if you can keep your comments as brief as possible so many people can speak. Thank you. Go ahead, Leo.
It's great to participate in this. Thank you for this opportunity. And thank you, Camila, for your presentation. You were not talking only about my country and your country for that matter, but also about my state, my city, my people, and the way that we do celebrate Carnival. And it is a great opportunity to decolonize about one more thing, which is the fact that Brazil was colonized by Portugal, not Spain, and therefore we speak Portuguese there, not Spanish. One time, Camila just told me that people get amazed by the fact that she doesn't speak Spanish. I am a Spanish teacher here because I happen to speak it, not because I was raised speaking it. And yes, it is always a political party to watch Carnival wherever it is. There is always some message to the current government, um, and it is a way for the people to speak up and to show to the government how they're feeling about historical elements of our existence in our country, as well as how they're feeling about some decisions that are being taken now. So yeah, thank you so much, Camila, for your presentation. I love it so much, and you too, Joshua. Thank you, because I'm 25% in Indigenous, 25% Black, 25% white, and 25% mixed of all of that. So that's how we are in Brazil, and I love it. I'm very, very proud of that.
Thank you, Leo, for your comments. And we invite others to say whatever you want to say right now.
I really loved these presentations as well. So thank you, Camilla. Thank you, Joshua, and Julia, who isn't here.
Yes,
And
Julia.
I like how all three were looking at ways of knowing and forms of knowledge that are often not curricularized and that are sometimes erased, marginalized, overlooked, and yet these forms of knowledge are so essential and important to decolonizing the curriculum. I was challenged today with the idea of decolonizing methodologies, and someone asked me a question of, is it really decolonizing work if land is never returned to Indigenous peoples? Like, is it only performative? And that I was like, I don't have an answer to that, because all of my approaches and what I'm hearing tonight, we've been thinking about decolonizing thinking, thought, learning, curriculum. But then if I have to tie it to the idea of land, how does that complicate it? So I just wanted to kind of put that out there and see if anyone had thoughts, or if you've been asked a question about that at all, how you responded. Yeah, just want to put that out there.
Just before, thank you for that question. Just before we began today, Lisa, we talked about nature and the land, because I brought up some of the things that were happening to me with the creatures. And so we asked people to respond to that, but we didn't get into the land itself. But that is something that we're going to go into on our bus ride to Macon. We are going to be thinking about land and how we have appropriated land and how we have built our whole culture on land. So that is a big issue when we talk about decolonization, right? So if anyone wants to attempt to answer that now, please go ahead, or any other comments you want to make, want to follow up with Lisa's comment, go ahead. It's open.
I'd like to say something. So one word that comes to me from all the three presenters is the possibility of decoloniality, because it's an ongoing process. So not giving up on anything is what I come away with from all of them. Now, to your question of land, I listened to some, I'm going to try and get that recording so that I'll give you the link. I'll give the link or send it to Dr. Tinkersak so she can send it to everyone. And this lady, she's indigenous, and she said that don't ever say it's not possible, because she knows about a land that was returned 25 years after this particular indigenous lady had been trying to get that land back. So 25 years. She said when this lady would talk to people, they were like, no, nobody's going to do anything. You're not going to get back. But she never gave up. She continued to push. She continued to send, she continued to like raise people to talk about it and send letters into different places. 25 years. And they got the land back. So that's why I said it's like Dr. Tinkersak says, praxis is action, is never giving up, is a possibility that everything can be done. And that's it for me.
I love that because it ties into what Joshua said at the start of his presentation, that hope equals liberation. And I associate possibility with hope. So that's a really cool connection.
And the other thing too, following Yeti's comment, Robin Wall Camara is the person whose work I have been following regarding land. And she is an Indigenous person, a professor in New York. And I'm trying to put the link to her. If you type in Robin Wall Camara, Kimmerer, you will see a lot of videos. And she is encouraging me to, the last one I watched yesterday was on reciprocity. Reciprocity regarding land. How do we always take, what do we give? So when I started out talking about the squirrels in my life and the deer in my life, I am trying to be more empathic and to think about how can I share the space with them rather than always being angry that the squirrels are now in my attic causing me $2,000 to $3,000. I got the price today, right? How can I turn that around? And that has to do with how we share the land, not how we give back the land though, Lisa. So that's something for all of us to think about. And the name is Robin Wall Camara, and I'm trying to stick it in the chat.
I added her website into the chat and her book, Braiding Sweetgrass.
I got it.
Really
it just
and we all should read Braiding Sweetgrass, please.
Exactly. That's the book that we can buy for people, Braiding Sweetgrass. If you are interested in us buying that book for you, remember I did say we have a book list. I am finalizing the book list tomorrow. So if you put any books in the chat right now that you want us to buy, we will get it for you. Put your name next to it and the book you want, but we are going to get a large number of books for faculty because we've been doing this decolonizing work for more than a year in MSE. And so the wrap up is with the doctoral students and the trip to Macon, and the same thing is happening for faculty. So in the month of July, we're having the reading of the different books that we're going to buy. And tomorrow is my last day to order the books. So if you want any books on decolonizing, now is the time to tell me, okay?
How many books can we have?
You can get Braiding Sweetgrass on Audible,
Yes.
and she reads the book herself. It's
It's
a spiritual experience. Please do it.
Thank you. That is one of the books that's already on the list. But if you want the Audible, go ahead and do that. Any other comments on this work that we've been doing today and last week?
Sorry, Dr. Tinkersak, how many books can we ask for?
I can't say that yet. It depends on how many books and the budget. So just put down the books you want and we'll see. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Other comments? Anyone who hasn't spoken today and who wants to speak right now? Anyone who hasn't spoken today, you didn't say who you were, you didn't have a chance to tell us where your location is. Any last comments?
Can I ask a quick question? For those of you that are on, I've heard from some of you, if you are planning to go on the trip to the Okmulgee Mountains on Friday, June 14th, could you just let me know either via email or text, and I'll put that back in here if you need that, just because we're trying to get an accurate number.
Yes, as Lisa said, we have to close on the bus by Friday, a week out, and we're already very late because we have been waiting for more numbers. So we're also going to hopefully treat you to lunch if we can work that in. So if not, we will let you know that you need to bring money for lunch, but the bus ride is on the department. This is part of our decolonizing work. So we really want to have
And someone had asked what time we would be meeting and what time we would be leaving, and I believe it's 8 a.m., Dr. Tinkersacks, is that
That's
correct?
right.
At Georgia State, at the College of Education and
That's
Human
right.
Development?
Yes, 8 a.m. from the College of Ed. And it'll be an
And we'll send out more info.
all-day trip coming back by about 7 o'clock.
No, if you already filled out the Google form, then I have your info. So thank you. Yes.
There is a lot going on, guys. We will be doing some work on the bus as we go en route and when we are coming back. So it is going to be a field trip that is very much informed and working closely with decoloniality. So please come out, and hopefully we'll have the books by then, maybe not. Because remember, I'm ordering everything late. We've been holding, and we'll do the best we can. But I truly want to thank you for staying on the call. I want to thank our excellent presenters, Julia Grimes, Joshua Robinson, and Camila Gasparin, for your wonderful presentations today, and all of you for being active participants. All of us will continue to decolonize as best we can in the places we occupy and in the work and the teaching that we do. Thank you again, and hopefully see all of you next week, Friday. Lisa, can you stay on for me, please? Thank you, everybody. Thank you.